All right, here we are for the last session, and it's been quite a journey. I mean, this is session 10. Um, and as Bo just said before I hit record, this is about buttoning things up. So every this is an open agenda. So whatever you guys want to talk about today, I don't have a I have sort of a plan, a vague plan, but it's what I want to talk about. It may have nothing to do with what you want to hear. So don't go by my plan. Go by what you'd like to talk about today. Anything on your mind around anything we've talked about, any gains you've seen along the way, any gaps that you still feel. Yeah, Ashley, go for it.
I was just gonna say I watched session 9 this morning, and Presley, thank you for sharing um, the how you relate and how this training has helped you in your marriage, or to understand your husband better. Because I feel it between us as well, and so I have and I want to go back to session 9 on what you were talking about. And I just want to thank you for not listening to the world, and for you, Adam, to get to know you better.
Hmm.
Um, I have a son who's getting picked on at school, and it's not just by kids. And really, our youth right now are listening to the world. They are letting the world define who they are, and it's not always positive. So it's very typical for someone to say, "Well, you're a problem," or "You're trouble," and then once they label you that, it's no matter what you do, you can't get out of that label. I mean, they are hyper focused on you because you're the problem. You mentioned that in school you would ideate out loud, and that's exactly what my son does.
Okay.
He's not a bad kid at all. He has ideas. He doesn't know, when it's appropriate to say those things, and they're not bad things. And there are some things he would say, like, "Why would you say that?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know." So he's impulsive. But it's just a matter of when you're young and you're immature and you don't know your talents. You don't know your thought patterns, you don't know your rhythms. And really, that's where all of our ruts, and that's where a lot of picking on happens, is because we can't control those impulses, or
Or we haven't
control,
learned how to.
or yeah, we haven't learned how. So I just wanted to say, for the training in whole, it is so important that we have this in our school system. And I hope Christy Hild and Jessica Clausen watch this in the near future. But we really need this implemented in our schools at a mature but young age. So that way, the kids aren't just listening to the world. They're not just listening to what Facebook says or what Instagram says. It's just they I don't know what it is about these platforms that these kids take so seriously, that as parents we can tell our kids, "You are good people, you have good morals, and this is what you're good at." But if Facebook, or if a student at school is saying something different, they're listening to them. So I just feel like that the assessment is just, it's not biased. It's going based on your answers and how you are. And so I just want to thank you, Adam, for not listening to the world and just learning how to use your talents, because we just feel the passion as you've instructed this entire 10 sessions, and it makes us connect better and have passion for what you have passion in. So thank you.
Thank you. That's amazing. What a great way to sum up kind of what this is all about too. It's these are young people on a journey. They've got all the internal like wiring that comes from the DNA blueprint, right? It's just that DNA blueprint comes from the past, into the present, and that's the human physiology, and the human experience. And then there's the world around us, which is extremely different than it was one generation, two generations, three generations. Forget about it. It is a completely different world, and we're all trying to figure it out. But then we've introduced this persistent echo of social media is what I'm talking about. So you can't get away from one social world, let's say school, you know, and you can't come home and then go, all right, school is just the temporary thing, and home is the is where I become me and how I know who I am. But at home, they've got social media, you know, they got the device with them all the time, and so they don't have a chance to turn that off, and it is pervasive. I work with high school students, and I see it from all walks of life. It doesn't matter the whole household, because it's the parents aren't raising their kids anymore. You know, it's popular culture. It is the social media. That's the permanent thing. That's the thing that will follow them wherever they go. The parents aren't in the school, but the social media is with them when they're in school. The social media is with them when they're at home. The social media is with them when they go off to college. So their peer group is their reference group. And so that's a pretty risky compass to go by. Your peer group is going to tell you who you are. Well, the peer group is really fickle, and they don't know who they are. So the answer is coming from within and unraveling that. I think that's the tools that are needed. So bringing this stuff into education, it's not traditional to do this, right? I mean, this isn't a traditional topic, but this is the most important curricula, whatever the right way to say it is. This is the most important. It's the inner. And how do you match it with the ever-changing outer, the world outside? So that's kind of a barn burner way to start things off. Any reactions or anything you all want to talk about today? This is your final session, and, how do you want to spend our time?
In session 9, you guys touched on the pushback when someone feels like, hey, this isn't my talent. And that's where I feel like this is going to go smooth as long as everyone agrees, like, oh, yeah, I relate to this, I relate to that. I think the challenge is going to be when there isn't buy-in. So do you guys have some experience or maybe some nuggets that you can equip us with on when things don't go smooth or there's a hiccup and we kind of have to navigate that challenge?
Yeah, can you first maybe paint a picture for me of what you're imagining might happen, just so I make sure I address it? Yeah.
One thing that I've witnessed was a young man, I believe he was a freshman in high school, maybe a sophomore in the spring when we did the Talents to Strengths at the high school, had taken the assessment a couple times. And there wasn't a match in the top 5 for both assessments. And what I identified was that this young man is a pleaser. So questions could have been answered on what would other people appreciate me saying to this question.
That's right.
So I can understand where there would not be an alignment there on the 2 different assessments. But I guess not knowing what might be on the radar of hiccups, perhaps the biggest challenges, and then overcoming those challenges that you guys have had experience with in dealing with other organizations, just so that those might be on our radar, because we don't know what we don't know. We have no idea what detours or bumps in the road we might encounter.
That's great. Yeah. All right. Perfect. And I'm glad that's a good example. And I know you're meaning more than just that one example, but let me start there. So because I have had people say, well, my results were this, but then they changed to this. And sometimes they mean it like as a way to undermine the whole thing. Like, oh, this is garbage. Or sometimes they're just curiously, and most of the time they're just curiously asking, what does that mean? What does it mean that? And I tell them the only truthful answer that I could think of, and it's this. The only reason your results changed is because you answered the questions differently. Now, why you answered the questions differently, I don't know. But if we did know, that would explain why, But I can't answer that for you. Nobody can. So you see what I did there is I basically said the instrument itself is fine, that you got different answers just, or that you got different results meant that you gave different answers. That's if you gave the exact same answers, you would have gotten the exact same results. Yeah. So what changed in you? We don't know. And no instrument can tell you that, you know? But let's start with where you are. Let's learn these patterns that it identified for you, because if your answers were accurate for you, then these results will also be pretty accurate for you, because the test is it has a respectable degree of the two things that matter: reliability and validity. Validity being, does this measure what it claims to measure? So if this is measuring dominant patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, are the results giving you that? And then is it reliable, meaning will people with those similar traits produce the similar results? Or in this case, if I give the similar answers, will it produce similar results? And so what I want to say, because all that stuff's confusing, is to read something called the StrengthsFinder Technical Report. I think if you Googleize it, you will see that you'll find that maybe we can find it too on the call. I have like several versions of it on my hard drive somewhere, and it goes through and it'll answer some really nerdy questions that you'll probably never get asked. But it will give like great answers that you could just go, oh, right, yeah, here's the Skeptic's Guide to StrengthsFinder. Basically, that's what the technical report is, how to explain it to the skeptics. And so for me then, what I try to do is not make it about the StrengthsFinder. I try to make it about the idea that we all have patterns, and if we could harness those patterns, we're going to be better off. And if we don't harness those patterns fully, we won't be as well off. And that's a pretty logical statement. And if someone can't agree with that, then I think they're just there to make trouble. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I've never really had somebody that blatant do it. So most questions are just the skeptic questions. And so the technical report would be really good to read for that. I think that will help you a lot too. It helped me. It was one of the first things I really read. And I didn't understand all of it, but it gave me enough that it really helped me piece together, what is this thing? And that's another point I've never really said before. If you don't overpromise and you accurately describe what this tool is, then it cuts down on a lot of those challenges. Because for me, I have challenges too. I have things that make me skeptical about this stuff. I tend to be more logical about these things. Like, I need a good explanation. I'm just not going to let a test tell me things without really knowing why. So, well, I forgot the point I was going to make on that. But, yeah. So, and what I said in the last video too, I think is I engage the resistance. I don't run away from it. I just basically say, I'll answer your questions the best I can. But also that I don't know is an absolutely valid answer sometimes. Now, what's really fun to do is when you get those people asking you those questions, if they have like analytical, or mainly analytical is the one I'm looking for, but look at their top 5 to see why are they challenging this, because that also could be indicative. And then that's a great way to kind of like, use that energy against them. Go, oh, do you have an analytical? Oh, I see that, right. So you like to ask questions. You like that. I don't want to embarrass them, right? But I want to, lean into it. Good. All right, that's my first. That's kind of my first pass at some of those things. But I think you just have to experience that resistance too at times to make you a better facilitator, and just to say, that's a great question. Let me get back to you on it. I don't have a good answer for you right now. I'm trying to cover some things on the agenda, but I want to highlight that, write it down, and then do follow up. And I'll reach out to me anytime. I'll help work through any of those. I actually think it's kind of fun. Because sometimes, like, I'll give you one more example that happens is sometimes people will accuse Gallup or the StrengthsFinder of like trying to say, well, you're just saying that we could ignore weaknesses, but we can't ignore weaknesses. And don't fall for that trap, because I agree. You can't ignore weaknesses, and Gallup agrees too. They never said that. So I think sometimes we'll try people. If you overplay the strengths message, then sometimes the skeptic will be like, "Well, wait a minute. You can't just always be, Pollyanna-ish about it." You know, you also have to look at the other side. And so that becomes like one of their main, and you'd be like, oh yeah, I totally agree. And that's why I say something like this. I say, when, I don't know if I showed you this. Let me know, tell me if I showed you this diagram before, because if not, this would be something fun to talk about. Let's see. Yeah, have I showed you this image? Right? Okay. So what? Yeah, I lost my train of thought again. But I try to show this image to frame everything, to say that what we're trying to do is, I'm not trying to tell you what happened before the beginning. I don't know, and I'm not here to tell you what happens after the end. I'm just trying to tell you that while we're here as individuals, we want to first make sure we survive, right? That's the first job. All of our systems inside of us are all about survival, and we need to meet that threshold. But beyond that, we really want a path to thriving. That's really what we want to have during this existence. Now, what does that mean for us individually? Well, that's what we need to explore. And what happens is we end up having stand-ins for what thriving is. And it's like fame, material wealth, I don't know, popularity, I guess that's the same as fame, pleasure, immediate gratification, those kinds of things. And that's not really a good definition for thriving. That's why I don't use the word happiness, because happiness often gets associated with pleasure and stuff. And it's more than that, but I think I talk about thriving then, because thriving gets away from those more passive kind of stand-ins for what thriving is. And instead, I like the Maslow thought, Abraham Maslow, where he talked about self-actualization. Or truly, I believe that Don Clifton, the creator of StrengthsFinder, was also of that mindset. Like, thriving is finding out one's potential and then moving toward that potential. And this is not just modern, modern-ish as in, the last 100 years, because I'm referencing Maslow and Clifton. This is ancient. This goes back to ancient Greek philosophy, and probably earlier than that, where it really is about what is the individual's potential and how to realize it, actualize it. Same meaning, same word, to realize, to make real. I know we often use the word realize to understand, like, I realize what you're saying, I understand what you're saying. But also the term realize means to take something and make it real. Another way we talk about it is manifestation, taking something that wasn't and now it is. And that's how we get here. That's how we get to the present moment. We're continuation. We're always in that process of continuation. Everything that is based on what preceded it until you get to whatever the origin is, And then for whatever the origin is, everything after that is a continuation. And right now we're standing in the continuation, and it will lead to the next moment. And then that will lead to the next moment, which is a really amazing thought, because for me, what it means is the only thing that can be perfect, because I say, we can't make perfection, but the present is actually perfect. It's the only thing that could have been given the circumstances that preceded it. But our core theory for our work actually harnesses this idea that if everything is continuation, then everything that's coming down the road will also be continuation. So if we can harness that, I call it progression. Where what we're doing is we're harnessing this idea that continuation happens, but in what direction would I want to? And in what direction can I use my resources to try to shape that direction? And that's also core to what we talk about. I haven't talked so much about resources in this course, but fundamental to our philosophy, or this idea of progression, is that we have, coming through our means, we have resources. We have time as a resource. We have love and community as a resource. We have material things. We have, even if we were living in prehistoric times, we would have, around us in our environment, some resources to work with. Knowledge is a resource, and some resources you could grow, like knowledge, and some resources you can never replace, like time. But if you learn how to use your resources, you could apply them meaningfully by harnessing continuation, or what we call progression. By harnessing progression, you can shape. You can't control, you could shape. And I think that's consistent with every kind of belief system I've ever heard, whether it's a traditional faith system or a modern kind of like, become all you could be, self-help kind of, way of approaching it. I think it satisfies all of it without getting into any of it. And it's consistent with all of it. It's saying that I can move toward thriving if I focus my resources on the right things that I call factors. If we focus your resources on the right factors, we could produce or move toward outcomes, or at least make meaningful progress. If you remember the alignment meter, we could at least make meaningful progress toward thriving. In fact, sometimes the visual will help. If we want to go toward thriving, another way to visualize it is we go from contrast toward alignment. And when we do, we reach this idea of thriving. And I wrote here IEF, so that may not mean anything. Have I talked to you about IEF? Have I used that acronym with you, IEF? It stands for Individual, Environment, Fit. And this is sort of another way I define thriving. So for your son, for example, like we just need to find a way for him to increase the fit between him and his environment. I make it sound easy, like, we just need to do it. But there's that alone gives us two places to work. We could work with on the individual side, and what can we do to harness those talents, create self-awareness, you find ways to help him manage, be self-aware and then self-manage and be socially aware. But then also the environment. What can we do to find and shape environments that best work for him too? And that's what I tell our students. And that is our responsibility more and more as we get older. If we could teach our young people how to do this, that's what I think the value is. How can they increase their individual environment fit? Then what I think happens is their happiness goes up. We don't have to talk about happiness. Their thriving goes up. We don't have to talk about thriving. Their wellness goes up. We don't have to, their individual environment fit, right? And that's true for all of us. And because we're individuals, the environments might need to shift a little bit. Married couples, one likes to sleep with the sound on in the background and one needs silence, or whatever the thing is, you have to negotiate, right? But these are the skills that young people need more and more. But here's what I'm hearing, okay? Heather and I have an instance of somebody we wanted to bring on as an intern, a younger person who the things we take for granted were extremely stressful. And then just yesterday, I was talking with a group of hospital managers, and we just have like a little thing once in a while where they're able to talk about, we call them progression sessions, actually. Progression is a key word for us, I'm just telling you. But in these sessions, they bring up whatever they want to talk about. And one of the people brought up, there's the four of us that have been here for a while. We're the OGs, the original gangsters here. But then we have like 8 new staff, and 3 of these new staff are of the younger generation, and they'll resist doing things that we just know to do as professionals. They're like, I can't deal with that patient today. I just can't. And then they won't. They will just not take the meeting with the patient. And they're like, this violates all the standards of professionalism we've grown up with and we hold. So, but it's like this idea of I just can't handle it. That's what we're seeing more and more in the younger generation. That making a phone call is stressful for them. They don't, they don't know how to do it or what to say, or And I get all that. It's not their fault. I mean, their environment didn't condition them for it. Their environment is conditioning them for other things. And the people who run the world, we currently don't do things the way they do it. So the job market doesn't do things the way that they would want to do it. So there's a lack of individual environment fit. We have to be responsible for creating it for ourselves. That has to be the skill. To me, that's the core activity that if everyone can do it, then we're better off. That's what parents are wanting for their kids. And a lot of times their messages don't come across right because the parents are like, I'm just trying to protect you from the environment. But the kids don't hear it that way sometimes. I'm not talking about, just anywhere, like, just any family or any well-meaning parent. The kids might hear it as criticism or they're not doing it right. But, it's the skill. That's what the parents are wanting. I just want you to be able to navigate the environment to survive and to thrive. That's what we want for anything we care about. We want it to survive and we want it to thrive. And so that's why I break it down in that model, like between birth and death, between beginning and ending, it really comes down to thriving. And StrengthsFinder is a tool that's helpful for thriving. And Talent to Strength is a philosophy that we use in conjunction with the tool that helps it become a thriving tool. Because here's how we thrive. If I know the outcomes that describe thriving to me, that constitute thriving, then all I have to do is think about what activities, if I performed them at the right level, would bring me that thriving. So if thriving to me, it's very context specific. Thriving is context specific. So let's talk about thriving in terms of grades. Oh, okay, great. Grades is my focus. Why do grades matter? You could think through grades are an indication of effort and engagement. Grades are a precursor to knowledge of the world and blah, blah. All right, great. Yeah. Now, what outcomes would tell me that I was doing well with grades? What outcomes would tell me that I was thriving or making progress or growing? All words that mean kind of the same thing. Well, you have to study. You have to sleep. You have to, I don't know, I wasn't a good student. You have to do the homework assignments, which isn't the same as studying, I don't think. You have to review flashcards or whatever. So if I identify the activities that will lead to the A in the class, and I guess for different classes it would be different, but if I could identify those activities and then put my resources into those activities and dial up my performance. So I have it written out as in a document here. I call it the game plan. And this is how we move to thriving. Thriving is a state where the outcomes we get match our purpose. So this doesn't say purpose, but this box is purpose, this is outcomes. And to the degree that our outcomes that are thriving really matter, our grades, for example, are reflecting our desire for our focus, then we're thriving. That's what thriving is. And when our outcomes do not match our purpose, then we aren't thriving. So great. Now we just need to know what is our purpose and what are our outcomes. Then we know what thriving looks like. But to get there is a different story. Getting there means what are the factors? What's factor A? Maybe there's 4 factors, A, B, C, and D. And if I get these factors into the right shape, then I get my thriving. I get my results of X, Y, and Z. And so in order to get these factors into shape, in order to get, let's say in this case, I want to get the grades, then my factor is study and sleep and review notes, or I guess, no, do assignments. Then the more that I perform that activity of studying and the more I do the assignments, then my grades will get higher. I use another example of gardening. If we want gardening, we want vibrant vegetation or whatever, to fulfill our purpose of having a good garden. What are the factors? We need sunlight, might be factor A. We need good soil, factor B. We need water, factor C, right temperature, factor D. And let's say we do all those things, we should get the garden we want. But if we don't, that means we're missing a factor, factor E. Maybe we have little bunnies and stuff eating all of our vegetation, and we didn't manage pests, which was the factor. But if we manage our factors, we get the thriving. And how do we manage our factors? What do we do to get the garden in shape or get the grades where they need to be? We invest our resources. And our word for that is engagement. And I know in education we use the word engagement kind of specifically, meaning the student's attitude and attention is invested. And that's true. That's how we mean it. But I also mean more than just those two things. I think attention and attitude are two resources, which is what we engage. We engage resources, but there's other resources. Talent is a resource. Our network and relationships are a resource. Our knowledge is a resource. So there's lots of resources that if we engage them, we align the factors. And if they're the right factors, we thrive. And this formula right here is the core. I keep referencing like the core of our content. This is progression theory right here. If we want to thrive, it's about producing outcomes that match our purpose. And in order to do that, we need to identify the factors and bring them into alignment. And if there's misalignment, then we won't produce thriving. We won't produce the outcomes we want. And in order to get things into alignment, we have to use our resources well. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean three things right here. We need to identify our resources. Whatever problem you want to tackle, if you want to improve your outcomes, first, here's a step I don't think we ever really do. What resources do I have? Sometimes we have resources we don't know we have. We forget we have them or whatever. You ever work on a project and you're looking around for something that will help and you can't find it, and then maybe a month later you find the perfect thing. You're like, yes, this is what, right? I wish I knew this all along. Sometimes we have resources we don't know we have. Other times we think we have a resource, but it's not there when we need it. Sometimes you might think there's somebody you could rely on, but then they're not really there. Something's happened or something, I don't know. But we need to identify our resources. Then the second thing we could do with resources to increase engagement, these are all the way I define engagement. It's about identifying and then cultivating. You could cultivate resources. You could grow them. I need more allies. I need more knowledge. I need more money or whatever. You could cultivate resources. What a great thing to know how to do. And then the third thing that constitutes engagement for me is how we distribute our resources. And that's what these three things are all about. These three things are about resources. Engagement is all about resources. Gauge means to pledge. What do we pledge? Resources. Time, effort, money, technology, attention, energy, knowledge, etc. Engagement involves the identification, cultivation, and distribution of resources. And where should your resources go? Here's a 500-pound statement, I think. You just drop it on the table. Your resources should go to the factors that must be aligned in order for thriving to result. If your resources go anywhere other than the factors you've identified, you're wasting resources. But most people have never identified the factors necessary for thriving, so they don't know where to put their resources. That's why people play video games or other things that may not be particularly productive. Not hating on video games, just maybe it's not the best use of time all the time, as a former gamer who's wasted too much time in it. But it's about how do we distribute our resources. It's not just cultivating them and identifying, because let's say you have all the resources, but you spent them like a dum-dum. It happens all the time. I was watching a documentary about lottery winners the other day. And that winning the lottery can be a great thing, but they showed many examples where it can be a very bad thing. All right, y'all, that was a long, what we call soliloquy. But, but that's progression theory. Any reactions to anything or anywhere you want to take the conversation? And Heather, thanks for getting us that technical report link in the comments. Good. Yeah, any reactions to any of that? Anything you guys want to talk about then? Because that's the agenda. Awkwardly. I don't have any other agenda items. Like, do you have questions about how to apply this? Do you have, Bo, did I do a good job with objections? Do you have some more thoughts or questions? Also, I do have a question about alignment. I want to ask you about the cabinet over your left shoulder. The one right behind, that Ashley just blocked. What is like the jog in the cabinet? I was interested in that. Was that just like they had to find a way to squeeze it in there?
I'm not sure. The guy who owned the house before us was a maintenance man. So there's a lot of stuff that's impressive here and other stuff that you're like, that wasn't his strength.
Okay, right on. Awesome. That's cool. That perfect explanation. Awesome. All right, you were going to say otherwise, or I put you on the spot. Maybe you didn't have anything, but yeah.
I think the technical report is going to be our go-to for a lot of the bumps in the road that we find. And I love the philosophy of, if you don't know, say, I don't know. Let's learn together. Because once you start blowing smoke, your integrity is destroyed. And now there's going to be no buy-in in any of this. So I appreciate that.
Perfect. And that's always how I've approached it. And it's always been enough. I haven't, not to say it won't ever not be, but as long as I know the stuff in that technical report, and as long as I'm able to articulate the themes and talk about them consistently with what's in here, or how Gallup describes them, then that's enough to provide value and to help people through the journey. Because what you're doing is you're just saying, hey, you took this assessment, let's make some value from it. Wouldn't you want to do that? If you don't want to do that, then I'm sorry, we're definitely going to be misaligned, because I am here to take people through the assessment. And if you don't want that, then yeah, there's nothing I could do to satisfy you. You know what I mean? Give them a Snickers bar. Right? But otherwise, yeah, I'm just here to take you through the journey, and therefore you're armed to the teeth in a way. Coin model is enough. Oh, the journey, what do you do with this stuff? Well, what we've done is we've identified out of our vocabulary of 34 themes. That's the world of StrengthsFinder. That's what Gallup has found in studying millions of people. If you want to study millions of people and you have different set of themes, then let's talk about that. I mean, obviously you'd never say that, right? But like, so based on that configuration, what are your top 5? Wouldn't you want to know? This is a Tumblr sequence of, you have all 34, but which ones are the ones that happen first and fastest? Because those will be the make or break for you. That'll decide, it'll be a large determinant, a significant determinant of how you move forward. From this point going forward, your themes are going to be deciding for you, because what's going to happen from this moment forward is you're going to get stimuli in your environment. Remember IEF, individual environment fit. You're going to get stimuli. You're going to get new people. You're going to get a new boss or new coworkers or a new job altogether. You're going to move. You're going to go to college. You're going to live in a dorm, or you're going to be in a sorority or fraternity, or, you're going to be married, you're going to have a family. And all that time, you're going to be thinking, feeling, and behaving. All that time. So why not get a harness on those things and get the most value from them? learn to shape your patterns rather than having them shape you. That's I remember when I was younger, I would read quote books, and there was a group of quotes around habits that resonated with me. Habits are the best of servants or the worst of masters. Stuff like that. Habits are at first cobwebs and then cables. Habits rule the unreflecting herd. Well, I didn't know what an unreflecting herd was when I was reading the quotes, but I didn't want to be one. And patterns and habits are the same thing. I mean, what is a habit? It's a pattern. What is a pattern? Something that happens and then happens again and happens again. And over time, it consistently happens. Heather knows, she's the pattern whisperer. She's always looking for patterns. She relies on them. Oh, there's the pattern. All right, let me harness that and let's milk it for all it's worth. I'm just kidding. But, let's use it. Let's harness it for her other themes, which are what? Developer, connectedness, greed. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That's not her. But if you know Heather, it's like the opposite of that. I just wanted to get a rise. So harnessing those patterns is an amazing opportunity that I never really had anybody just present to me before. I was always a prisoner of my patterns, and I was kind of bringing it full circle to what we started with. Punished for my patterns. Ooh, there's a good book title. Punished for my patterns. The Adam Seaman story. Actually, I'm going to call it Unbecoming Adam. It's a double entendre. Like unbecoming, like, what does matter? I haven't written it yet, so why am I selling it? All right. So the patterns, though, that is our autobiography, just kind of bringing it full circle. I mean, to really get in touch with our patterns, why not? And harness our patterns and learn that we're beyond our patterns. I mean, that's, to me, one of the biggest parts of this is if we don't know that we're largely pattern-based creatures, then we're beholden to them. I have it up here. I have we react versus respond. See, there's a little subtle difference, right? I think that sometimes you just got to react, and you can't hold back. Like, I sent a text the other day. I was just like, oh, that was just a reaction, and I regretted it. But other times what we really want to do is we want to respond. And so that responding is being more deliberate and mindful, and it's using my patterns but not being beholden to it. Whereas my reaction, it's usually pattern based, right? And that's not against patterns. Patterns are useful. They free us up. That's how you drive to work in the morning and not, and you're able to think about other things and talk on the phone, which you shouldn't do, and blah blah. But the patterns are what allow you to do that, to get dressed in the morning, to think about your plan for the day. Patterns are great when they work for you. All right, any response to any of that? Yeah, Ashley.
So I love how you brought back the coin model again, because yeah, you are who you are, but the coin model and your talents, it equips you with the responsibility of, yeah, you are who you are, but you have a responsibility of controlling who you are. You can't just tell somebody, it's just who I am. Yeah, it's who you are, but take some responsibility for how you are. And so I love the coin model, because as you were explaining it in session 9, I mean, instantly I put 90% of school students in my head. And it's like, if we could, teach them that to control, to interrupt a pattern when it's, being overly activated. And I mean, I think the school itself, I was the one getting picked on in school. And there's no real explanation of that other than the fact if we just understood each other better, our school life would be a lot better, you know, instead of pointing at somebody because they can't interrupt a pattern of theirs. And also, and you know, on the other side of it, you also can control that overreaction as well. So I just thought that was pretty cool. And also just to kind of put in with the whole pattern talk, I mean, our body is ran by patterns, not just neurologically, but also when it comes to our muscles and our organs and the non-voluntary uh, things that go on in our body, such as breathing. We don't have to tell our body to breathe, but due to our patterns, I mean, we have to breathe to survive and thrive. But also when it comes to walking, you know, our muscles work together, our bones work together in order for us to walk. And if we can't control that, then you're not walking. You have a sprained ankle, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, adapting and learning. And I just love the idea that we could potentially equip, you know, the younger generation to be able to socialize and to be able to connect with one another versus this is, I mean, you're not good at this and you're a troublemaker. And, you know, we have a responsibility, and really all it takes is just a few leaders to have passion in this. And I feel like that we could be able to implement this.
I agree with this wholeheartedly. So much so. I want to, there's so many things we could talk about from here, but this is really the core of what we're talking about and why we're doing this, what strength-based education is meant to be. So we want anti-bullying, we want diversity, and we want people to be better prepared for life, right? In a school, we want people to be able to do those three things. And I think StrengthsFinder really, or this awareness of patterns is really at the core of all of it. Awareness of patterns, but we don't talk about it. So patterns is what I call BIBNO, basic but not obvious. If I've ever shared that acronym with you guys, BIBNO. So almost everything I talk about has this in common. It's basic. It's not advanced. The things I talk about, I wish they were. I wish I could say, oh, they're so intellectually like beyond normal human comprehension. But they're not. They're not. They're the opposite. They're like, oh my gosh, that is so the basic. But we don't talk about it. So it's not obvious. And so we're not using this basic but not obvious thing that is actually really important. Patterns is basic but not obvious. Continuation. When I described that, I don't know what you were thinking. Like that has to be one of the most basic things in the world. Oh yeah, what happens now comes from what preceded it. It's so basic. But we fail to think about it, and we don't even think about how to harness that, because I think that is I think continuation, I can't think of anything more powerful than it. So then it's the most powerful force in the universe. Unless there's something more powerful than continuation, which possibly whatever started it in the first place would be the only contender then. So continuation is just whatever, powerful stuff. Why not harness it? And smart people do. That's what societies do. That's actually what a good parent does. You know, I think Ben Franklin had this quote. I love it. It's, I became a revolutionary so that my children could be farmers, so that my grandchildren could be poets. You know, it's just kind of like, that's continuation. That's the harnessing of it. Another way to talk about continuation is this model that I don't ever get to talk to, but if you've ever heard of positive psychology, right? Have you guys heard of that? This model is in the book that started it all. Nobody really talks about it because the author of the book, Happiness, wait, what is it? Martin Seligman is the founder of positive psychology. I'm just trying, Authentic Happiness. This is just like a page and a half of his book, and there's no model with it. But when I read it, I'm like, everything clicked. Basically, he describes happiness as not one thing, but as a sum of positive emotions. So you're happy when the sum of your positive emotions is greater than negative emotions to a high degree. As you go through the day, you're going to be collecting positive emotions. So why? What will help give me positive emotions is a positive experience. If you want positive emotions, if you want to be happier, if you want to leverage positive psychology, the idea is you want to experience positive experiences because that's what produces positive emotions, which is what constitutes happiness. Does that make sense so far? All right. So how do we have more positive experiences if positive experiences are so important? Well, what Seligman describes is that we need to engage in positive activities. Okay. Because if we engage in a positive activity, think about something you call a positive experience. Well, what happened right before it is what made you call it that. So it was the activity you were engaged in, whether it was talking to a friend or reading a book or going for a run, playing with your dog, working on a project, painting someone's laundry room because you love doing it and you care about them and you love their laundry room getting painted, whatever. You want to make sure that you align the activities with our positive personal traits. If your activities align with your positive personal traits, that's a positive activity. What do I mean by positive personal traits? Well, Seligman meant goals, values, and strengths. These are your goals are usually positive things. Unless you're trying to do something bad, you're trying to do something good. Your goals are a positive thing about you. Your values, the things that matter to you inherently, and then the things that you're good at. These are positive virtues. So make sure the activities you do align with these three. Does that make sense? This makes sense. This is how, we build a life. All right, let's find what those activities are. Well, how do we do that? Well, most of the activities we do happen within the context of an institution. Think about it. The activities you do happen at work, in the home, in your neighborhood, in your faith organizations, institutions, your governments. So your school, your work, all of those. So institutions that value and develop the individual's positive personal traits are what we would call a positive institution. So positive institutions are where positive activities take place because a positive institution wants to match individuals to their positive activities to people's goals, values, and strengths. You don't even want to belong to an institution that goes against your goals. Why would you? You wouldn't want to be part of an institution that goes against your values. And we don't think about it as much, but you really don't want to be part of an institution that really doesn't allow you to express your strengths or they don't really value it. So this is as far as Martin Seligman went. Positive institutions. We should create our positive institutions, and that will lead to greater happiness. And I just asked another question. I just took it one step further. This is my little secret trick I do with all these great thinkers is I just find a great thinker and I'm like, ooh, let me just add one more step. Because I'm like, what makes an institution positive? Of all the factors, what is it that will determine if a school, if a family, or if a church or whatever is positive? It's the leadership. There's other factors, but I've never seen a positive institution that didn't have positive leadership. Right? So I think that a critical element for creating positive institutions is the practice of creating individual environment fit. And I think that's what good leaders do. And they positively use their social force, which is a concept I hardly talk about more. And I'm the only one that really talks about it, except there's been a philosopher I found that did about a century ago. Simone Weil, or Simone Weil, W-E-I-L, talked about this term social force. But this is how I describe leadership. I think it's a social force. I think it's me taking positive actions will spur in you a positive response, maybe a positive reaction. And positive being these things, positive aligning institutions with values, goals, and strengths of individuals so that people have more positive experiences. Think about the places you love to be, what places you call home and community. Those are positive experiences to be around. You being there fills you with positive experiences. Anyway, so this is a progression model. This is a way of harnessing the structures to produce greater individual thriving. That's another way to describe positive experience, by the way, thriving. Any reactions to this model? Did you like it? Did it make sense? Is it BS? Is it relevant? Because I think it is. I think what we're talking about, yeah, is creating a strengths-based school, strengths-based institutions. Yeah, Ashley?
I was just going to say it kind of ties in with the individual environment fit. Yes. And my father, his home's not very positive, and that's his environment, and he gets very negative there. But what Bo and I witnessed the past week is I took my dad out of that environment and we took him to the garden where he was able to do what he loved, which is, just get dirty and work hard. And so that created positive experiences and a positive environment, technically a positive institution because it was a gorgeous, beautiful day, nothing wrong with that. And then when you have your positive leadership, you didn't have the influences of negative people. We were talking uplifting, talking about how much we appreciate him. And so, yeah, that's definitely fitting in what we are talking about.
That's great. Yeah. And what was the thing that got him out of that environment into do it out and about?
An invitation.
Beautiful. Which I would call an act of leadership. You see? Because an invitation is original. You originated it. I mean, you didn't invent the idea of an invitation, but this particular invitation came from within you. And then him accepting the invitation then led to this chain of events that you perfectly described, and that Seligman described, and that I described by adding on leadership here, right? But this is the chain, and when we harness it, it works.
And it's funny because I told Bo his first day, dad going out there, I told him, I said, watch, my dad will thrive out here. And that was the term that I used. And within an hour, my dad was getting in, getting dirty, being happy, had more positive conversations, which normally don't happen when he's at home. So it was it was very uplifting and encouraging to get him out of that and put him, in a more positive environment that fit him.
A more positive environment. That's it. You didn't say perfection. And so this is all progression theory. All the things we're talking about here, it's all about you harnessed the pattern of, and you matched him to a better environment where the pattern could take place. And then it produced human thriving, inner emotions of peace or flow. That's really big in positive psychology. There's a book by that name. It's one of the most famous books out in the last, I mean, honestly, and it's like on a lot of people's top reading books list, called Flow, by a guy with a really unpronounceable name. I've heard it pronounced Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Yeah, Heather, will you let me see if I can just find it like real quick, and pull up the book cover so you could. There we go. All right. So it's this book. Okay, here's Amazon. This name here, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, right? But it's this book, Flow. But basically, flow is a state where I don't notice time pass. It has certain qualities. I don't notice time passing is one of the key hallmarks. I'm engaged in an activity that is using capabilities that I already have, and also allowing me to stretch them and challenge them in a way that doesn't feel like, it may look like work to other people, but for me it doesn't, or for the person it doesn't. And so that flow state is where that person goes, and it's considered a very healthy, positive state, or positive if it's an emotion, a very positive emotion. So those are some of the characteristics of flow. But there's a strengths component to it. You might have heard in the description. It's the idea that I'm not doing something that I can't do or know nothing about. It's something where I'm engaging already capabilities that are, and then I'm able to build upon it. So there's a phrase that I love to use: broaden and build. Broaden and build. This is how we grow. This is the way we grow. We don't grow this way. We broaden and build. That's how talents and knowledge grows. It's kind of like a snow person, a snowman or whatever, rolling a snowball up, and it aggregates and it grows. And this is the journey that we've all been on. We don't know it when we're kids because we're just told to go to school and do da 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 da. But what we're doing is we're aggregating our broaden and build, Why? To make us more capable of navigating society. We don't say it that way. That's in the background of obviousness that we need to bring forward more, is to say well, that was a pretty cool gesture. We need to bring it from the back, bring it forward more. Because that's the game. That it doesn't change. I mean, the field changes a little bit, but the game doesn't change. The game always, from the minute you're born, is finding environments that match you as an individual. And as you do, you thrive. And as you don't, you suffer. And this is the basics. And it's Bibno. It's not advanced, but we're not harnessing it like we could or should. We've gotten too advanced, I guess. We've gone beyond, and it's returning to this core function, and that's what talent to strength is. All right, so, anything else we want to talk about? Heather offered the idea that, I don't know if you guys would want it, but do you want to see the document generator on how to produce reports? Somebody's going to need to know how to do it.
I think Fit to Serve has an account. We would need to make one for the school district then, right? Or do you want them to share it?
No, it's up. Yeah, however you guys want to do it. We can make a separate one for the school, or they could, Fit to.
Well, since we're recording it, it might be a good idea for me to just. I think we have enough time that I can run. It's pretty. It is not complicated at all. So if you guys want me to do that, I'm happy to.
Yeah, so let me just see real quick. Yeah, you want to do that? Is there anything else you'd want to talk about? If you think of anything, just type it in the chat.
At this point, Heather and Adam, we don't have the experience you guys have with this curriculum. So you've equipped us with the knowledge. We don't have the experience. A year or two after having used this for a while, we would know some of the questions that we might have with a certain situation. So if you have any highlights on this was a challenge that was overcome with this knowledge, or this was some pushback that we received, and this was the workaround. But I think pointing us to the technical report is going to help with a lot of that. So I'd like to see the document generator.
Good. Yeah, let's do that. And I'll just throw out there, as long as we're around, we're here to support you guys. So as you do more of these, bring the questions. Because I think you guys are doing it in a context that we haven't done it that before. You're using it in a different way, and you're going to be adapting it to different audiences. So I think you're going to be innovators in this realm. But we'll happily partner with you in that innovation process. Good. All right, that's an invitation. It's on recording, so I can't revoke it. Heather, you wanna do a little screen share action? All right.
Okay, so let me go, and we'll just start from the beginning. Can everyone see that all right? Okay, so we'll get an account created for the school, so you guys will have that. So it's just t2s.gen.com. And obviously you'll log in. I'm logging in as Adam. Okay, ignore this first part because you guys won't do this part. This is just because. So once you log in, it'll take you to your dashboard here. So the first thing you're going to want to do now, the school district, you won't have any profiles in there yet. Fit to Serve folks, you do have profiles in yours. So that'll be the first thing you want to do, obviously, start creating profiles. So you just click create profile. The people will have to share with you. If you don't have them already, they'll have to give you their results, kind of like you all did for us. And I put them into our DocGen and produce the reports. But it's pretty straightforward. These fields are all optional, and then it just goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you just click, whatever the top 5s are. And then I'll go over groups in a minute. And then you have to make sure you click save. Otherwise, it won't save it. So once you have profiles in there, we'll just pick on Adam since he's the first one. You're going to have options for creating reports. So top 5 is always going to default to that as the first one. Then you just click generate document. And so from here, you can download it, however you want to do that to save it. And then in the drop down, you have all the other report options. So that's pretty straightforward. Do you guys have any questions on creating a profile? Okay, so then groups are really nice to do, kind of like how we had the team grid for everybody. And again, it's really simple. You're just going to click on groups, go to create a group, and you just type in the group name. So we'll just do a test group. And so now test is in there. So I could go to profile. So I've already created Adam's profile. So I can click edit, and then I can go down here and I can add him to the test group, and then make sure you click save again. And then it'll tell you it's updated. So now what happens when you go to somebody's profile that belongs to a group, it'll give you the options to do those team reports that we did. Yeah, and that's really it as far as the DocGen is concerned. It's like I said, it's really straightforward. There's nothing rocket sciencey about it. Am I missing anything, Adam? You're on mute.
You did. You covered really the core functionality of it. There's a couple things it could do, like if you want to batch it. So meaning batch it. I didn't say batch. Batch it. I'm not crazy. I'm not batch it crazy. Okay. I said batch it. Batch. If you want to batch the groups, you can do that. You can do that. And instead of printing off one report for each person, it'll print it all, like everybody's into one.
I have never done that. I didn't know that that was a thing.
I know. There's also another thing too.
Where do you do that?
I shall show you. Give me. I'll open it up now. I'll get to be the one to show people the cool stuff this time. Not just you.
Yeah, because you never get to talk. I know it's.
I never get to share my screen and talk about things. You're always hogging it. All right. All right. So, so my friend and my good friend Aaron. All right, the beta group from a talent to strength beta group. All right. So if I go into batching, let me show you before real quick. So Aaron is in a group called T3 Beta Group. So when I do batching for that group, I don't, by the way, there's something wonky. Do not put a file name in here. Just let it assign it by its own because it messes things up. Just click save and it'll just give it a name and you'll just have to figure out what that is. It's a glitch. But but now what I've done is it's produced a PDF file that has everybody in that group, which there was only one other person in the group. So, but with one click of a button, it produced everybody's report. If it was 30 people, I'd have 30 reports here, 30 pages. So that's the batching function. It's nice when you're working with a group of people. So, yeah. Others didn't know about that, so she said it would have saved her so much time. Yeah, and then there's another function in here too that it's a little wonky, but if you do it right, it will work. where you can you can upload a CSV file, where if the CSV file is in the right format and the instructions, the coder who did this for me said these are the instructions. If it's in that format, you could basically download the CSV file. Do you know what CSV stands for? Input moment.
Comma separated values.
All right, she has input. A CSV format, which, you know, basically any spreadsheet should be able to do. Then you could import it. You choose the file and upload it, and it should upload in here. The only thing is it's really sensitive. So if you have one space off, or if you have a row in there that shouldn't be in there, it could really mess things up. So
It's only if you have like a lot to put in that I would even mess with it. Like, 15 or 20 or more. Otherwise, it's probably more cumbersome than it's worth. Wouldn't you say, Adam?
yeah, unless you're really good with the details. If you're like me, where you just are like, it's good enough, shove it in there, and it's just it's a little annoying. But anyway, but I want to also, while we're talking about the document generator, always want to give a recognition to Bill Dewey for helping to make that happen. Yeah, because it was just an idea. So that's the document generator. It's pretty simple. It's very unique. I mean, it gives you a lot of value to be able to produce these reports. It's extremely valuable. It's a huge edge. Gallup doesn't have reports like this, and nobody does. But yet you could still use Gallup's reports too, like, the same reports that everybody has access to. You do, but these give you a couple of additional reports, and unique too, and learner friendly. That's really the thing. I mean, the visual element in learning needs to be there, and I don't think the Gallup reports have harnessed it as much as they could or should. So extra dimensions. All right, so that is the document generator. Any questions on it or anything? Feedback? I know I don't expect you all to be able to use it right now from that little tutorial, but you can go back and refer to the video, see it, and we'll always, again, be here to help you through it. It's once you get the basics, then it's pretty easy to use, so pretty user-friendly. All right, well, while we have you, this is our time together, and any other things you want to bring up, any questions, any themes you want to talk about, any exercises, anything. All right. Well, as you go forward in your journey with Talent to Strength, just keep us in mind. We love doing this and love what you guys are doing and want to support it. So, yeah, you've been great to work with too. I really enjoyed working with you all. I would work with you anytime. And I think you have a really awesome school system going on there. I mean, what you guys are doing is really cool. So,
I'm going to use this as an opportunity to shamelessly self-promote because I don't think Adam will. I don't know if you all know, but Adam has like a full suite of consulting offerings for businesses, school districts, nonprofits, you name it. And they're all based around progression theory. And so if you know of anybody in the community, any businesses, any nonprofits that could benefit from some help with engaging, aligning, and thriving, please let us know because we can work remotely and you all know how valuable these tools are. So, but it doesn't have to be StrengthsFinder. That's often a good way to get in the door, but we can do strategic alignment processes. We can help organizations who are having issues around interpersonal communication. So we've got lots of Lego blocks to build with. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case y'all didn't know that.
Nice. Good. All right. Well, again, we're here for you. Reach out. Really enjoyed it. And let's have this be the beginning of a conversation, not the end. Okay. Be well, everybody.